How's it going, folks? Dr. Derek here. Going to give a little recap of the Highland Games I was competed in at Loch. And as you can see, I'm in the gym, got my cigar. This is not an intra-workout shake. This is very much a celebratory day. Recovering after the games. I actually don't really have anything on my competitive calendar after this point, so I am relaxing. I am going to enjoy a beer or two. I'm going to have my cigars, and I'm going to take a little bit of time off to let my body heal. Just finished a big cut over the last few months. 2 weeks after the cut was done, I jump into Highland Games, which seems to be an annual occurrence. So last year, I only did the Loch Games this time of year. The year before that, I'm pretty sure that's the only one I did. No, I did a couple more after that, but it was like in the fall. But anyway, this is the first Highland Games that I've done literally in a year. I practiced for about 2 weeks leading up to it, maybe 2.5. Basically, most of the events 2, maybe 3 times with the weights. And just jumped in, had fun, because I really enjoy it. The people out there are really special, and I enjoy the heritage of it. And that's kind of the point of this video. Not so much about my results, but I wanted to go through some of the events and what they are and why we do them. So, in the Highland Games, we have what's called traditional order. And that starts with the stone. We move on to the weights for distance. And then after that, we go to the hammers, caber, sheaf in America, and then the weight over bar. But this game's the A class that I compete in, which is one step down from the professional ranks. We started with the heavy hammer. And if you can imagine a 22-pound hammer that you are spinning around and have to extend your entire body for at a high rate of speed, not what you want to do first thing in the morning. But this ended up being my best event for the entire day. I actually finished first in this event with a throw of a little bit over 80 feet with 22-pound hammer. Now, the history behind this event is that this was actually Scottish artillery. They would put men on the hill over a battlefield, and they would wind just like this and throw these big metal balls connected to a wooden handle into their opponent's armies, which was super, super cool. Now, on this day, I ended up throwing a little over 80 feet. My goal, in reality, was throw about 75, because I'm only hoping for about 90% of my best throw. But I think 80 feet, 11 inches was my throw on this day. All-time PR, very, very surprised by that. Very happy and grateful for that as well. The next event after the heavy hammer was the light hammer, which we don't always throw. Most time we only throw one hammer, but the light hammer is 16 pounds compared to the heavy, which is 22. And I could not get anything sorted out on this light hammer. I was excited to do it after I had so much success on the heavy hammer, but the timing is a little bit different because the velocity is quite a bit higher spinning that lighter hammer around, and I was just falling over and losing my balance and all kinds of things. I ended up throwing 95 feet with the light hammer, which sounds okay, but I've thrown 99 with this before and was really excited to hopefully hit 100 feet. Was not going to happen on this day though. I think I ended up in 3rd place on this light hammer event, which is totally fine. I mean, I'm competing against guys who are throwing more often, and they deserve to beat me, for sure. Our next event after this is we tried to move back over into traditional order, and we went to the open stone. Now, of course, the stone resembles the track and field shot put. We call it stone put. The Greeks did the same exact thing where the original track and field came from, but Scotland had a lot of input in this. Actually, in the first Olympics in the modern era, they threw a heavyweight exactly like in the Scottish Games, so there was a really big Scottish influence on the Olympic Games, but now they just throw the shot put in the discus. The open stone that we throw is between 16 and 18 pounds, but is a natural rock. They try to find one that's, relatively grippy, but at the Loch Games, we have a really weird stone. It's flat on one side, and it's kind of like a D shape if you look at it from the side, and from the other profile it's very rounded and orb-like, but we have a flat side. It's its own little beast, but it's one of the really cool quirks about the Highland Games is that a lot of different games and festivals have a specific stone that has been thrown for years and years and years. So we know that stone as the Loch stone. The Grandfather Mountain Scottish Festival, it has its own stone called the Clackenheart. It's 20 pounds, but it's very, very rounded. It's almost like a shot put, but it's much, much larger because, of course, granite, which that stone is made out of, not as dense as a regular shot put, which would be much, much smaller. Regular shot put, easy to get stuck in your neck. These stones at the games that I'm talking about right now, incredibly difficult because they stick out so much farther. You can't get that thing tucked in very tight for anything, so it makes everything a lot more chaotic. The track and field folks, they don't get that same tuck. They can't use their same techniques. The people who are more like me with a powerlifting background might favor that a little bit just because it keeps people from moving as fast. Now, I think I came in third place on the open stone this go around, which I was plenty happy with. I threw 37 something feet. I've actually won that event with that specific stone before for the same reasons I talked about with a 39-foot throw. But that was a couple years ago. Every year is a little bit different, and I also haven't practiced in, a year minus 2 weeks. So I was very, very happy with that result. Our next event, since we were jumping back into traditional order, was the heavyweight for distance. The heavyweight is 4 stone. A stone is about 14.1 pounds, and that means 56-pound weight that we are throwing. This is the one that was in the Olympics very, very early on in the modern era. The lightweight and heavyweight for distance, I struggle with immensely. My footwork is bad. I don't understand even what it's supposed to feel like very well. I've been throwing these things for 15 years, still suck at them. It's actually regressed in the last several years because I think these events take a lot of practice. And I ended up throwing 26 feet 10 inches, I believe, which I don't think placed at all, but at least I didn't foul out. I was a little bit in danger of doing that because of the slope of the box we're on. It's not perfectly flat, and every throwing surface is going to be different in every games that you do because they literally go out in the grass, make a box, stick a trig in front of it, which is our front border, and we have to figure out how to throw in it. Everybody has to throw in the same box, so it's fair. So I was happy just to get a moderately decent mark that belonged in the A class. I think 25 feet is the minimum there to be able to compete there. So it is what it is, and then we moved on. So next up is the lightweight for distance, and I struggled even more with the lightweight compared to the heavyweight. I could not get my form down, and since we're moving at a faster speed, this is a 2-stone weight, which means it's 28 pounds. And we spin faster with that one. And my normal technique, I actually had down pretty good. I was throwing 55, 56 feet, which is okay for me. I've thrown 60 feet before, but many, many years ago when I was much more practiced. And I was expecting to hit those same mid-50s somewhere at this game, but I ended up just throwing 50 feet. And the slope of that box really threw me off. And it's not anyone else's fault. And we all had to throw in the same thing. But for whatever reason, I could not adjust very well, and I got timid, and I just couldn't uncork one. So throwing 50 feet in odd circumstances, I even fell over in the first rep, or the first throw. So just to show you how off I was on that one. But didn't get hurt, that's the main goal, and still having fun out there. So the next event was the caber toss. The caber toss is the one that people really know the Highland Games for the most. And the history behind that one, it's a mystery. I've heard all kinds of stories from bridge building being the original thing, from loggers in ancient Scotland, cutting down a tree, and usually a few of these were involved as well in every story that I've heard. But the goal of this event is actually to flip it over straight, and that's why people think that bridge building or bridge starting was the original intent of this, because you toss the log, kind of like this cigar, then you want it to go over on the end and fall straight over. Now this would be great if you have a log that's long enough to clear a large creek or small river, and it basically lands there, and you would have the beginnings of a bridge to go across. So either way, a perfect score on a caber toss is 12 o'clock. And that means you flip that thing straight over to where it's actually completely due north of sorts from where you released it from and where you were moving. Another good score is 11 or 1 o'clock. They're basically the same thing, 10 and 2, 9 and 3. If you don't get to one of those scores, you get a degree score where the caber goes up. A side judge determines what the angle was that it got at its highest point, but it falls back down or kind of falls off to the side a little bit. My first throw was a 70 degree. I underestimated this caber quite a bit. I thought it was light, and it didn't look that tall, honestly, compared to ones I'd turned before. Probably didn't give it the respect it deserved, and it bit me. The second one, I was really fighting the wind on, so if you can imagine an 18 to 20 foot stick going up in the air, if you've got a breeze, it's gonna feel like it's got a parachute at the top and it's gonna be blowing it quite a bit. So I'm holding that thing on my shoulder and it's pushing in, coming off the shoulder. So I'm dancing with this thing, trying to figure out how to get a good run with it, stop and pull it up in the air as high as I can so it has enough time to actually get on the other end of the stick and fall over for a good pull. Now, the second pull, I got about a 2 o'clock score, which means it went over and kind of fell off to the side a little bit. And that's okay. I was hoping to get a decent turn, but a perfect score is 12, and that's what I got on the third pull. I really got a hold of that thing, was more patient, respected the caber, which is very important to do in all respects. So I picked it off the ground, made sure I had a good seat on my shoulder, had lots of good pressure here, walked forward and then tried to get a good little jog going, because the more momentum forward we can get, the easier it is and the faster it's going to turn. So we need a big pull when the caber is getting to the upright position. We want to pull there so it feels nice and heavy, to get it up in the air as high as we can to give it more of a chance to turn over. And on that one, I nailed it. When the crookedness of the caber and everything, finally got it figured out, got a perfect score, and that shot me up into second place on that event. Even got some really nice compliments from the announcers on the field, which I genuinely appreciate. Those guys have been around the games for a really long time. Buck Buchanan, who's been announcing and throwing for decades at this point. Larry Brock on the field, who was a multi-time world champion as far as I can remember. We actually have a common coach in our background, Meg Stone and Doc Stone, who were incredible people to learn from. He worked with them at Appalachian State, where I got my undergrad at, and then I got to work with them at East Tennessee State University at the Olympic training site for my master's and PhD. Our next event, after the caber, we ended up breaking order, because normally weight over bar is the last event of the day. It's really a big test of strength and fortitude and endurance at the end of the day. It's very, very hard on the body. But we're throwing that 56-pound weight we threw for distance earlier, but we're going to throw it over a bar for height. If you've watched strongman, you've seen events very similar to this, where they're throwing kegs or something else. But the strongmen used to throw that same 56-pound weight over a bar for height in their contests, because that's where it originally came from. But anyway, this event was a big bust for me. I've thrown 14 feet a few times in this event, but if a little bit of your timing is off, we have a bar here, we're standing under it, and we're trying to throw it over, but sometimes you throw it out in front, and you have the height, which is the worst thing you want to hear in those events, and it falls down in front of the bar instead of actually going over. And that's what happened to me. My throws actually hit the bar would swing out of the way, and it would go in the right path to go over, but the bar wasn't there for it to go over because it was swinging. Kind of a bad luck thing, definitely a bad practice thing. I just didn't do it. I threw like 3 attempts in practice leading up to this, so your timing's gonna be off, and I fully understood that. But I pouted for about 10 minutes afterward. But that's just the way things go. Finally, our last event of the day is the sheaf toss. And the sheaf toss is probably one of my favorite events, right up there with caber, because it's a really unique event. We're throwing a bag stuffed with twine that's either 16 or 20 pounds with a 3-tine pitchfork. And this is more of an Americanized event. The Scottish don't recognize it as much, but it's so fun, and the crowd loves it because we're throwing this bag way up in the air. And it kind of simulates the history of farmers throwing hay up into the top portion of a barn. So, as you can imagine, if you can throw heavy hay, a big bunch of hay, you don't have to throw it as many times. It goes into that work efficiency kind of history. But everyone can relate to throwing something with a pitchfork or a shovel or something like that. And when we get to the higher heights, upper 20 feet, 26, 28, 30, 32, which is where I ended up in this event, the crowd really gets into it because those things are flying way up in the air. And it's very, very exciting to see if it actually gets over the bar. Now, my best before this was 20 feet or 28 feet with both a 16 and a 20-pound bag. Now, if you're familiar with physics, that don't work out too good. 2 completely different force curves. Like if you throw a lighter bag with the same force, then it should go higher. But for whatever reason, I'd never been able to accomplish it. So this was the first time I'd ever broken 30 feet. And then I snuck that 16-pound bag over the 32-foot mark. tried for 34 for the win after that. Couldn't do it. Daniel Goulet got me on that one, but I was plenty happy to come in second to him. He's a very, very good sheaf thrower. So we had a good time. The crowd had a good time. We avoided being struck by lightning standing around big metal poles, and that was the #1 priority, but it was a really good time. That wraps up the day, and I really wasn't doing the math during the day to see where everyone's overall placing was. I was really just there to have fun. And in my head, like the 3 events that I had that were really poor, the weights for distance, 56 and 28, and then the weight over bar, like all the weight events, I really thought that I just did horrible at. But it turned out, instead of like the 4th or 5th place overall that I assumed I got, the events that I placed on really carried a lot of points into the overall scoring, and I ended up 2nd place, which is the best placing I've ever had in the A division. I finished 3rd once a couple of years ago. That's the only other time I've been on the podium. So honestly, I got really lucky. It's a little bit fluky to where I would come back after an entire year of not throwing any of these things and end up finishing 2nd place to a really good friend, Spencer Keck, an incredible thrower. I'm always jealous of his throwing form because he's so much better than I am. Real big fella. And honestly, short people don't tend to do very well in the Highland Games. It's kind of like strongman. If you're really short, your circumferences on all your throwing techniques are going to be smaller. Even if your body is moving the same speed as someone taller with a larger wingspan, you're not going to be anywhere near as fast out at the end where the weights are. A lot of you understand geometry and physics there. But so for me as a shorter person to actually be able to place like that, very grateful. A little bit lucky for sure. But I've been throwing in these games for 15 years now, very much off and on, but I enjoy it every time I go out there, even if it's blazing hot, which it was some during these days. And I had a lot of fun. The real purpose of being out there, one, honor to the heritage, where these games were invented close to 1,000 years ago when the English were occupying Scotland during the English Empire. Scotland wasn't allowed to have an army, so they couldn't train soldiers in the traditional means that they'd done for many hundreds or maybe thousands of years. So these implements were actually implements of war. And all the weights that we throw in competition, they were thrown at enemies. The hammer especially was thrown from great distances, which is basically their artillery. The stone kind of speaks for itself. The sheaf wasn't a traditional event, so it's a farming event instead of a war event. Weight over bar was just one kind of manufacturer because nobody was going to just throw the thing up in the air. There was no Air Force at the time 1,000 years ago. But the tradition of these events are absolutely fascinating. And it's cool to keep those traditions alive. The crowd loves it. And that's really the reason we go out there. We want to hit good numbers and everything for national rankings and international rankings and qualify for things. But really, it's the people and the people I get to throw with. It's a really special group of throwers for the last 15 years, even though there's many people have come and gone. But people like Jeff Crouch, who actually got me into the games, very grateful for. I mean, these people are always positive, and it's a special kind of group because it takes a special kind of person to be involved with the games. And you can take that as you will. Larry Brock was out there, and we got to reminisce over our common coaches over the last many years, Doc and Meg Stone. And it almost feels like a family reunion every time I get to go to a games. So I really had a great time. Look forward to doing it again, hopefully again this season. I'll figure out another time to do it. But for now, I'm going to relax. We're going to have fun. So catch you guys in the next video. Take care.